Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I want to talk about romance novels. I think that there are some misconceptions about my feelings towards romance and why I feel the way I feel about certain ones, so I just kind of want to clear the air a little bit. I've mentioned multiple times that romance is definitely not one of my top genres. It's nowhere near a favorite, but I kind of want to do a deep dive into that and explain why. To be very clear, my dislike of romance does not mean that I hate every romance novel that has ever been written. What it comes down to is that there are certain aspects of romance novels that I enjoy and some that I don't. So that has been seen in varying degrees recently with my review of Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I gave that 5 stars. And yes, I was surprised by it because I didn't really have high expectations going into it. I think a lot of people are forgetting that there was a time in my life where I read nothing but romance, and particularly Nicholas Sparks. Now, obviously, as I've gotten older, my taste in reading has changed, which is expected. Like, I'm older, I realize a lot more things now. So for people to make a big deal out of me rating a romance 5 stars, it really doesn't make sense because it's not the first time that it's happened and it won't be the last. The thing is that there was a period of time where I kind of stopped reading romance, but that doesn't mean that I'm never going to enjoy a romance novel ever. Me rating a romance as a 5-star read isn't anything new, but it just isn't something that happens often. But in that same vein, it's also important to take into account that I don't read romance on a regular basis. In particular, in the past 5 years, I probably only read 15 romance novels within that span of time, and only 3 of them had 4 or 5-star ratings, and those were They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is really just a short story, and The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. What it all comes down to are the elements that make up each romance novel. So there are a lot of things about a lot of romance novels that I dislike. While there are some that I like, there are more that I dislike. Some of those include romanticizing shitty things. Think about Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey, where activities that are creepy and not acceptable are made to look cute because Edward's a freaking vampire and Christian Grey has money. Like, that doesn't negate the fact that both of them are stalkers and they're controlling. So the rage about Twilight, which yes, I did enjoy when I was a 14-year-old because I was an idiot, I can't read that now as a 26-year-old and be like, oh yeah, that's totally acceptable and I would totally recommend it to somebody. Absolutely not. The second thing that I dislike about most romance novels is that they tend to be very tropey. There are very few romantic tropes that I enjoy, and ones that I dislike tend to be the most popular. Insta-love, friends to lovers, the I'm not deserving of love trope because of some family trauma, things like that that 1, don't make sense to me, and 2, are overdone. The third is when the main couple has like an obsession with each other, like they feel like they can't live without each other. Like, again, Twilight and New Moon, when Edward breaks up with Bella and she basically loses her will to live and just like doesn't do anything for months. Or even in Maybe Now by Colleen Hoover, where it's just like their entire world just revolves around the other person. The fourth is any romance that typically deals with teenagers, because I feel like they're constantly doing dumb shit. I don't know. And I feel like a lot of people will use the excuse of, oh, well, they're teenagers. Being young and being stupid are not synonymous. I don't know what y'all were like when y'all were teenagers. So like when I see certain teenage characters do things, I'm like, why the fuck did you do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense, you know? And the last thing, which probably plays the largest role in how I rate romance novels, is the fluff and flowers. I'm really not into the overly mushy, full of PDA. It's just not how I roll. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. That's just something that I dislike, and other people do, and that's totally fine. I just disagree. Like, having a difference of opinion on certain novels or certain genres is not the end of the world. It's just not something that I really look forward to. And again, I think a part of that might be because I read so much Nicholas Sparks when I was a teenager, and like now looking back at those, I'm just like, ugh, no, I definitely would not rate those the same way that I would now. Another thing that I tend to dislike when it comes to romance is when romance isn't the primary genre, but then some romance aspect gets thrown into it and it doesn't really make sense. So My examples of that are Truly Devious, which is a murder mystery. Literally something happens and then all of a sudden this romance gets thrown in. It's such a weird place in the book. My other example is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. The whole synopsis of book one is that Scarlett needs to win Caraval in order to get her sister back who has been kidnapped. And if she doesn't, her sister dies. And it's like, your sister is missing and you're sitting here wasting time swooning over Julian's muscles. Like, no, I need you to focus. We don't have time for this right now. So in situations like that, I feel like the romance doesn't really make sense. And I feel like it ends up being such a core focus when, one, the way that the book is presented doesn't make it seem like romance is going to be one of the major elements, and then it kind of just takes away from other things that are actually more important to the plot. But when the romance makes sense and it fits into the plot of the story, then I enjoy it. So an example of that is Of Fire and Stars, where it's a fantasy and there's all these magical elements, but also the princess who is betrothed to this prince falls in love with his sister. Otherwise, leave it out. It's not needed. And it's like, this book would have been so much better if you hadn't done that. So like I said, there are a lot of things about romance that I tend to dislike, but on the flip side of that, there are some things that I really enjoy. And to be honest, again, this goes back to me being a very practical person. I enjoy reading about real life struggles, real things, and that's a part of the reason that I enjoy Get a Life Chloe Brown so much, is because the issues that the couple had, a lot of it was about healing from past experiences, learning how to be a better person and a better partner, and taking accountability for your mistakes. And those things just resonate with me because I guess it goes back to personal experiences. I've had a lot of shitty relationships, and a major part of that is that I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong and being able to hold myself accountable, but then other people don't. And when you call them out on it, they shut down, or they feel that they have to retaliate in some sort of way, and I don't have time for that. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Hold yourself accountable, and then let's move forward and let's figure out how to prevent this from happening again. I just feel like my views on romance in general tend to be pretty unique because I'm really not about the bullshit. I feel like if more people thought logically about certain things, and they would have a lot less relationship problems. But that's a story for another day. But because I did like Get a Life Chloe Brown, I'm hoping that I like the rest of that series. I'm supposed to be reading Take a Hint, Dani Brown later this month. So I'm hoping to find more things like that, more things that just focus on situations that I find relatable. So I say all this to say that I am going to challenge myself to read more romances. So I do have a few romance novels on my TBR, and there are some of them that I'm really looking forward to because I think they're going to be really good because the plots sound really interesting. And there are a couple that I'm a little nervous about because I'm not really sure if I'm going to enjoy them. The point of this is for me to be able to pinpoint what I do like and what I don't like, so that I can continue to read romance novels but know that I'm actually going to enjoy them, rather than having to sit through 1-star romances like the 2 that I read so far this month. So I already have my October TBR figured out. What I think I'm gonna do is in the month of November is read mostly, if not all, romances, so that I can really express what it is about romance novels that I enjoy and what it is that I don't. So if you're interested in how this ends up working out for me, I suggest that you follow me on Instagram. That is where I tend to post most of my bookish content, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm excited to try. I really have not read a lot of romance in the past couple of years. I kind of closed that door and never looked back, but we're gonna open that door back up and see how it goes, mainly for the month of November, so stay tuned if you're interested for that. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.